afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to the NACTA webinar for today. Our guest is Intrepid Group. They have been a longtime supporter of NACTA. Many of you have met them at either our trade shows, our national conventions. They're always there to be able to support the home-based travel agent. Today, we are graced to have a BDM from Central U.S. I will introduce her in just a moment, but I want to get a little bit of housekeeping done before I turn the reins over to her. As those of you who are familiar with our other NACTA webinars, we do record these, so that way you can use them as reference in the future. We store them on the NACTA YouTube website. I encourage everybody to go to YouTube, look up NACTA, and you will find our NACTA channel. I will also, in the next couple of days, send you a link that will take you directly to this particular webinar. But while you're there, just sign up, subscribe. That way you can access a whole bunch of our other videos that are on there that include how do you work on your one sheet, hey, I need to change some of my profile information for my NACTA profile, how do I change my passcode, all these little short videos that Lisa Watson has put in that will be very helpful for you. I have everybody on mute. I also will go on mute as soon as I am done introducing Carolyn. That way there's no squeaky chair typing noise in the background, because we usually are working from our home office and it's not going to be a quiet building. So, Carolyn, I want to turn the reins over to you. Thank you so much. I know that you had a little bit of change at the last minute, and we are graced to having you be our presenter. I'm very excited. It's the first time I've worked with you, and it's been great so far, and I'm looking forward to your presentation. So I'm going to turn the reins over to you. I'm going to put myself on mute, but please be reassured that I will be here when you're ready to do a Q&A session, and I'll just pop back up. Here you go.
Great, thank you so much, Lorraine. I really appreciate it. So, as she mentioned, I am Carolyn Ocon. I am the Intrepid Group BDM for the Central USA. Just to give you guys a tiny little bit of background about myself, I've been in the travel industry doing a variety of different roles since about 2004, and then have made my way over to working with one of my favorite things, which is doing land. So I'll go over a bunch of stuff today. We've got some highlights from our 3 Intrepid Group brands, Geckos Youth Adventures, Intrepid Travel, and Peregrine Small Group Touring. Through these unique brands, we'll share a little bit of a few examples from some of our exciting trip themes, new and old, from our real food adventures to family-specific departures to Legal Cuba P2P trips for U.S. citizens, while exploring some of our most popular destinations for 2017 and 18. So just to give you guys an idea of who we are, if you're not super familiar with the Intrepid Group, as you can see below here, we are a family of brands. We are run by travelers for travelers, and I'll get into that a little bit in the next slide, but we are also the world's largest provider of small group experiences. Amongst our family of brands, we have over 1,600 different itineraries on every single continent. And we'll go over a little bit of how we kind of subjectively view adventure as well. So I always like to start with where we came from, because I think it's a really great indication of kind of where we are today. So this is a picture of our 2 founders, the gentleman in the striped tank top in the middle and the gentleman in the pink polo shirt with the very short shorts and knee socks. So basically this was back in the 80s. Our 2 founders were Australians who really wanted to do travel in a different manner than was commercially available at the time. So what they did is they bought this incredibly lovely garbage truck in Africa, and they refurbished it and they made it into an overlanding vehicle. So then they took this small group of friends with them to Africa and spent 9 months driving the entire continent and visiting tiny little villages and small little animal preserves and having a completely different experience than any other trip that they could possibly find. It really enabled them to kind of get down and understand the culture from a very firsthand experience and hire local guides and really keep, their money in the sustainably in the cities and villages that they were traveling within. So that's really, really neat. It was very successful. Everybody came back in one piece next year, even after spending a very long time in that giant garbage truck, that they decided to do it again the following year. And they took out an ad in the newspaper, again, this was the 80s, and filled a trip with people interested in doing the same sort of travel in Thailand. So that's where our roots are from. And that's why I think it's really great because, you know, amongst our family of brands, we still stand on those same principles. We were started by travelers for people who wanted to do something a little bit different and really were concerned about the cultures that they were touching. So the Intrepid Group, like I said, we are a family of brands. And one thing that is wonderful about all three of our brands, because there are some distinct differences, is that we all stand on these 4 pillars. Basically, let's start here with the fact that, you know, we offer the most authentic itineraries for our travelers to really get under the surface of a destination. And we do that by only hiring local leaders. So when you are in Morocco, for example, you will have a Moroccan guide with you the entire duration. If you're in India, your guide will be Indian. So you have a really, really interesting way to view the culture with somebody who's potentially grown up in the very city that they're taking you traveling around in. So you get such an immersive experience. We all offer really small group travel as well, which is another thing that we stand behind. We have one of the smallest group sizes in the industry. The Geckos and Intrepid brand, they max out at 16 passengers, whereas Peregrine is going to max out for 2018 at 12, but currently maxes out at 16 as well. However, all of our trip departures are guaranteed, and usually the trips run between 8 and 10, making it an even more intimate experience. And being able to really get into those places that a large group necessarily physically just won't be able to visit in the same way. We also stand really heavily on our sustainability. We have a deep commitment to principles of sustainable travel and responsible business. We were actually one of the very first agencies worldwide to go ahead and ban elephant riding commercially. And just on a completely personal note, I was lucky enough to do a safari in Kruger last year, and I definitely saw my fair share of elephants, which were outstanding. I'd never really seen them in the wild before like that, and just getting to see how powerful and just huge they are and very mercurial. They are very temperamental. It just kind of even drove home further what had to be done to kind of physically and mentally break elephants that were in captivity to be safe enough and docile enough for consumers to ride on them. So I'm really excited that we were one of the first companies to ban that, because just the practices are so unsustainable. And we have been followed suit by many other large corporations, with TripAdvisor actually being the latest one in the past year to ban as well. So just to give you an idea of where we go. So you can see here, we go to all 7 continents. The other really great thing is that we also do operate over 28 different DMC offices worldwide that are part of our Intrepid Group as well. So they are our employees and our coworkers, and they help us do all these really great on-the-ground land logistics and help us do any sort of troubleshooting that may arise, which is really wonderful. We just recently opened Iceland, Reykjavik, Iceland. We just opened up Tokyo, Japan, and we just opened up San Jose, Costa Rica this year, just expanding our network even further. So it's something that we're constantly growing, which is really exciting. So we're going to start with Geckos Adventures. If you guys have not been acquainted with Geckos, I really like to think of it as organized and chaperoned backpacking, basically. So you can see here, they are for 18 to 29-year-olds. We like to keep that age demographic really, really tight, because we want these travelers, who are often very first-time travelers, to be, you know, with other like-minded people. A lot of times, really young travelers, and I have a background working with university travelers with Michigan State University, you know, they don't necessarily want to hop on a trip for their very first time out of the country and, you know, potentially, you know, pay for inclusions that they just can't afford, you know, be on a big bus that they don't necessarily have something in common with everybody else on the trip. So these are really wonderful because, like I said, organized backpacking. You're going to get a really great price point, and you're going to get a really flexible type of trip. So I have a couple of our top sellers that I wanted to show you guys, just to give you an idea of what the inclusions look like and what these trips kind of resemble. So the first one here is a Vic Falls and Safari. Like I mentioned, I love this one because, again, I was in Kruger last year, and I know it's not entirely the cheapest place in the world. These are amazing. So you see here that we have a 9-day trip for about 760 bucks. They've got quite a few inclusions here, but you can also see, just based off of the duration of days and the number of stops based off of included activity, that you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom within the structure of the trip. These are really great for young travelers, again, because they potentially may be on a budget. So they can kind of pick and choose the things that they want to do in addition to what's included. Again, these ones are going to be very budget. So for example, with this one specifically, because it is over a variety of national parks, we have an overlanding vehicle, but usually on the Geckos trips, you are going to be in a lot of public transportation. Again, it keeps that price point down and gives you a really immersive experience. Your accommodation is going to be much more on the guest houses and homestays and on the lower end of the hotel rung, if you will. This one is a camping trip, but again, keeps that price point down. Another one here is a really great one for the Inca Trail. This is a great example if clients are looking to do an FIT or travel on their own, because they can use it as a really nice little add-on within a larger trip. And obviously that is helpful because you can't just do the Inca Trail on your own. So this is a really, really great option for them as well. We were lucky enough to go down to Peru in June to go visit some of our DMC offices, and we were able to go and visit the warehouse in Cusco that all of our Inca Trail porters were really lovely to put together all of the different things that you'd see when you were camping on the Inca Trail. So we have Peru across all of our brands, and especially when it comes to the Inca Trail, and all of them operate with that same high standard. So you see here on the left-hand side, there's one of the porters. He's putting together a tent for 5 people. I'm sorry, for 2 people. Our team of 5 was all able to fit into it comfortably. And then we also do have portable bathroom tents. So if you have spoken to anybody who has hiked the Inca Trail with different operators, you're kind of relegated to the public toilet situation, which I've heard is not great. So we do have private tents for the participants on our trips. And the other really great thing is that we were able to meet our porters. So many of our porters go on to learn English and become chefs on the Inca Trail, and even further on go on to become guides. So it's a really great way for local Peruvians to better their circumstances for their families and work in an industry outside of just farming. So one of our most popular guides, you see him in the plaid in the front, he did exactly this, and he started his career with us as a porter when he was 16. He did that for about 10 years and became a trekking chef, and now is one of our most beloved guides. He's hiked the Inca Trail more than 600 times, and he's even completed it in 9 hours once as a marathon, which I thought it kind of blew my mind. So we move on to Intrepid, which Intrepid is our main brand. And with Intrepid, we're going to see the most varieties of types of trips, because we really like to define the term of adventure very subjectively. Being a Midwesterner myself, I definitely know that many people find eating different foods to be an adventure in and of itself. So we like to break down our trips even further so our travelers can really hone in on a very niche idea of adventure. So we're going to look at some of these, some of our most popular themed itineraries within the Intrepid brand. So one thing I did want to start with is that Intrepid is our only brand that breaks down the trip even further into trip styles. This is also so your client will know exactly what to expect to be included on their trips. And I'm not going to go over it really in depth right here. I'll go over it when we look at some of the slides of the itineraries, but basically it's just based on comfort level and based on inclusion. So we start with basics, which again shows right here is travelers on a budget. So this is a really natural progression from where our Geckos ends and our Intrepid begins. Original is where you'll find the majority of our trips, and it has a very good pace and a very good amount of included activities versus free time. And then we just go up to comfort, which is exactly what it sounds like. It just rubs the rough edges off of the, of the adventure a little bit more and gives you a few more creature comforts. So first I wanted to start out here with one of our cultural immersion types of trips. I know Cuba is not, Cuba's kind of waning a bit, but it's still an amazing itinerary and an amazing trip for people who are interested. I was really lucky enough to actually go twice this year, and I was in Cuba in April chaperoning this particular trip for one of our private departures, and it is an unbelievable trip. So it sits on the comfort style. So right here, you're going to have everything included except for one of your lunches and one of your dinners. Your transportation throughout is completely private. Your accommodation is going to be premium guest houses for the duration. We've got a couple nights in a standard guest house, again, just based off of where you are in Cuba. So, they really haven't blown up in the way that a lot of other big tourist destinations have in, oversaturating the market with huge hotels and things like that. So it gives you a really cool, authentic experience. And then you see that basically every single one of your activities is going to be included. Cuba is a little different just based on what we're looking at for a legal trip for US citizens. And this is a legal trip for the P2P requirement. So everything is pretty structured. However, it gives you such a really great snapshot of the country because every place you visit on this itinerary is so different. I was so pleasantly surprised by Cuba. I could go back 10 more times, I really feel like. So then one of our other great breakdowns of brands is one of our active trips. So this one here is actually a trip that I'm going to be doing myself in about 6 weeks. And it has a really good combination of different activities that are outside of just the normal cultural immersion. So we obviously absolutely have that, but this one here is going to focus specifically on spending some time hiking, spending some time biking, and some time kayaking, as the name specifically suggests. But this one also gives you a really interesting different breakdown of just physical activity. A lot of people don't necessarily want to just go on a trip and sit on a bus, and they really want to get to some harder to reach places. I'm not going to lie, I may sweat to death. I have no idea how this trip is going to go, but it's my first time doing one of our active trips, and I'm really excited because just in looking at these destinations, they're a little bit harder to reach places, and it was one of the things that definitely attracted me to this trip because you'll be able to really get a completely different perspective, other than just busing into a place and staying there overnight and then coming back to a main city. So that's one of the exciting things. We've got these itineraries all over the world and some really, really neat options as well. So it's another one of our cool niche products. So family travel is another one of our really great products. And I just wanted to give you guys, this is a little bit longer, so don't worry about reading everything in there, but just give you an idea that just because you have a family and you have a sense of adventure, it doesn't disappear just because you have kids. Obviously, there's going to be kids that want to do Disney, and I think that's 100% fine. But after you do Disney a few times, this is a really cool alternative for people who potentially had that sense of adventure and that sense of immersion before they did have kids. These are really great because all of our hotels are going to be kid-friendly, including swimming pools, and you get a really, really amazing small group adventure that is going to definitely be guaranteed. So even if you are a single parent or one of your clients is a single parent and they are, just confirming on the trip with one of their kids, the trip is going to definitely run. It's really great though when you get to travel with other families because you are traveling with people from around the world. So it's kind of like you've got a built-in babysitter as well. And these kids are definitely going to have activities that are geared towards their age demographic that the parents are really going to find exciting as well. So just a good idea of what we're looking at, especially with the family. And most of our family is going to sit under the comfort style. So you're going to have the majority of your activities included. Your hotels, like I mentioned before, are all going to have a swimming pool. So when you do an activity and you potentially have, let's say you have an afternoon free, you're going to have something to do at that hotel other than have your kids sit there bored, playing on, handheld device or playing on phones, things like that. We've got a few of the meals included as well. It gives tons of flexibility to be able to kind of have that local engagement and, do your own thing for lunch. Sometimes people, you know, they want to go shopping and they want to spend a little bit more time, you know, sitting down and relaxing. So we just like to keep it a little bit flexible on that particular front. So Costa Rica is a great option. It's close to the US. It's something that's incredibly touristed, easy to get to, and this is a perfect trip that would sit within the 8-day range. So you just have to take basically a week off of work. So it's the type of thing that you could find in between holidays. You could do it over a long holiday. These are really, really great. Another one of our more popular ones is our Mexico family holiday. So this one here is, again, it's very close. It's very doable for, again, during one of those holiday periods. Again, with the inclusions, this one's going to have private transportation throughout in the hotel, and you have a lot of really great activities that are going to be geared towards, you know, adults and children alike. Nobody's going to be bored on this type of trip. And it ends in such cool places that you can go ahead and add on and spend a little bit more time if you wanted to do a little bit of a beach vacation at the end of the trip. So then we go into what is my personal favorite, our food trips. So these are just like the regular original trips with all the same inclusions and all the same cultural immersions, just with the added bonus of food tours, home cooked meals, guided tours through local markets, hands-on cooking classes, as well as demos and local beverage tastings where you're traveling with a bunch of like-minded foodie travel companions and a food-obsessed travel leader. So these are, again, like I said, my personal favorite. I'm not one of those Midwesterners who is afraid to eat something funky, so I do love the idea that I kind of can get out there and get into those different markets that, you know, try something I wouldn't necessarily find here in Michigan. So we have them that they break down into 3 specific trips. So we've got our Real Food Adventures, which is our longer trips, bite-sized breaks, which are about 2 to 3 days. Really great little thing that you can add on kind of as a city break, maybe at the beginning of a trip, at the end of a trip, you know, something if somebody's doing an FIT and they want to add on something that's very food related, those are really neat. And then these urban appetizers, which are our day trips. We have a whole bunch of new food trips for 2018. You can see a lot of them sit within the Middle East. Some of them are going to be combination trips in Europe. And some of them are just adding a bunch of new stuff on there. So lots of really neat stuff for 2018. I wanted to go over a couple of our more popular ones. We're going to start with Italy here. As you can see on the itinerary, it's like the absolute perfect itinerary for a short trip to Italy for a week long. You start in Venice and you hit all of the hot spots. You go Venice, you're spending time in Tuscany, and you're spending time in Rome. So this one here, it's really interesting too, because you do get a combination of different types of transportation. So you get that really, really local experience of being on the train. Like I said before, your activities are going to be all of the same activities that you'd be on a regular Italy trip. However, just a real big focus on the food, which, let's be honest, if you're going to go to Italy, food's a huge deal. So you might as well get that extra bonus. This one's really neat too, because you get a farm stay in the middle of the trip. So you do get to kind of see that slow food movement, which is really big right now. Then we go over to another great one in Asia, our Real Food Adventure Vietnam. This one, again, it's hitting all of the hot spots that we have a couple of our other really great trips that hit, but really focusing on the food here. So this one is really great because in Hanoi, we visit one of our Intrepid Foundation projects. So the Intrepid Foundation is our nonprofit wing, which we really love to kind of stand behind and educate people on. Again, going back to the elephant riding, you know, through our Intrepid Foundation, that's where we found out how terrible the business practices are. But we do other wonderful things with community engagement and child welfare and just sustainable agriculture and things like that. So in Hanoi, we have a wonderful restaurant that we support called Kodo. So on this particular trip, you do go and visit that restaurant. And it's one of the really, really great projects that supports the disadvantaged youth in Vietnam. So this wonderful restaurateur opened up this restaurant and started hiring all of these, you know, all these street kids in Vietnam and teaching them this amazing skill. And now they're sought after by amazing, really, really, really high-end restaurants around the world. So one of the cool things that you do get to see that is such a cool community engagement project, and how it really, you know, we try to support the project which really supports the local community. So this one here is another really awesome, different type of itinerary that really hones in on the food and gets you an unbelievable slice of the culture. So now we're going to go over to Peregrine, and Peregrine is more of our premium adventure. So this tends to, you know, attract a bit more of a well-traveled demographic. So people who are a bit older, people who definitely are interested kind of in those details of travel, really want to spend a little bit more time in each place. So these tend to be a little bit slower paced too. So you're not packing and unpacking, packing and unpacking. You really get to kind of get your fingers all pruny and marinating in the local culture, which is such a nerdy thing for me to describe it as, but it's great because you really do get to spend some time and get to know where you're at and get a real feel and a real flavor for it. So right now, Sri Lanka is one of our hottest destinations. It's huge with Condé Nast, travel influencers, Travel and Leisure, New York Times, etc. It works so well at the Peregrine level as well because it gives you an amazing price point for all the inclusions that you have. This is a great focus for clients who love safari and who've either done Africa already, or somebody, it's a little bit of a tighter budget to get to Africa. So you do get such a diverse itinerary here. So you get beach, city, wildlife, all in one. My colleague Stephanie was just leading a trip to Sri Lanka on the Peregrine level a couple of weeks ago, and she has some really great photos from her trip. So you can definitely see the level of the accommodation here in the top picture. The rocks in the background that you're vaguely seeing are Sigiriya, which is one of the highlights of Sri Lanka. I was lucky enough to go a couple of years ago and actually did our real food journey in Sri Lanka. But you go and you hike this big, huge rock formation that's kind of, you know, when you get to the top, it sort of looks like the ruins at Machu Picchu, which is really neat. And, you know, you've got some really wonderful Asian wildlife preserves for the Asian elephants that you can see here. And here's another photo of the private transportation that they use throughout. So a really good combination of things. For me, I'm pretty well traveled throughout Asia, and I found Sri Lanka to be such a delight. It absolutely exceeded all of my expectations and is a really great destination for first-time travelers to Asia or people who've been all over. I was expecting something that was really akin to India, and I was just treated to how wonderful Sri Lanka really was. Another one of our top sellers with the Peregrine brand is going to be Peru. So Peru, like I mentioned before, across all of the brands is going to be one of our top sellers. But with this is an itinerary that's really great for an older clientele who really wants that cultural immersion and really wants that adventure and that taste of the Inca Trail, but doesn't want to do the trekking or the full camping experience. And I'm 100% not going to lie that I don't blame them. Right here, you can see that just the included activities are going to be much more robust. The accommodation, which I failed to mention before, but the accommodation sits much more in the 4.5 star level with some really cool feature stays. This one specifically goes to a jungle lodge. Your transportation sits mostly in private, so you can see throughout the itinerary that there are a couple of options that include that internal airfare, so you can cover much larger ground. And you can see here that we have the train option to Machu Picchu. There is the option to do a one-day hike for those more adventurous clients, and that's something that we'd be able to source out individually. I wanted to show you guys also some pictures from when we were on that trip to Peru as our team. We took the train up to Machu Picchu, and it was such a lovely train. Again, I'm from the Detroit area, so my train options really lie just in taking the Amtrak to Chicago, which is not always the nicest option. But this train blew any other train that I'd been on kind of out of the water. These seats were so big and comfortable. There's little tables in between, so we sat in 2 groups of 4 and just brought a picnic lunch, and we're able to look at the scenery through those beautiful windows on top. A really, really clean, safe, efficient way of getting up to Machu Picchu, especially if you are short on time. And especially, you know, if you're a little less adventurous. And we were more on the short of time, but I'm not joking. I don't know if I could ever have done it. I'm not used to that altitude. And this was a really nice gradual way to get myself used to that altitude. As you can see on the right-hand side, the toilet situation was also quite clean and quite modern for this type of transportation. And then lastly, I've got a really popular itinerary throughout Morocco. This one's also a really great price point too. Definitely people who have, you know, spent a little bit of time traveling throughout Europe and they want to do something maybe a little nicer there, where their dollar stretches a little bit further. And this one is a fantastic itinerary that gives you a little bit of everything throughout Morocco. So you get, you know, the souks, the Medinas, you get the the Roman ruins, you get the desert, you get the mountains, and you get all of these amazing activities included as well. So this one also does have transportation on a camel. So with Peregrine and some of our comfort level product, we will put you on, you know, a quote unquote local transportation. I guess camel is considered local here, just to enhance your experience. We're not going to make you cross the border or anything like that, because we do want you to have a comfortable small group experience. But this one's really nice because you get that very North African flair with the camels. Plus, you'll see them everywhere. I like to say that, especially in Southeast Asia as well, you'll see tuk-tuks everywhere. We want you to try that. But it's really nice with the transportation being on a private vehicle, because you're not necessarily waiting around for large groups of people to join public buses. You're not thinking about, you know, strikes on trains, things like that. So this gives you definitely a much more comfortable way to travel and see a lot of ground. And then over here, this is our last little wing of our Intrepid brand, which is Urban Adventures. So Urban Adventures is our day trip brand. And these I really love because you get such a flavor of what you're going to experience on a larger trip within a small, short duration. So these can be anywhere from 2 hours to 8 to 10 to 12 hours, depending on where you are in the type of trip. But they also kind of break down even further into those niche products I was talking about. So there are active trips that you can do, a cycle trip for an afternoon. There are amazing cultural immersion trips where you can go to the Mekong Delta and see different villages along the river. And then this one here, again, from our trip when we were in Peru, we were able to go and do a Lima home cook tour. And this one is so much fun. The two adorable Peruvian ladies in the front, they are a mother and daughter team, and they taught us a bunch of their family's old Peruvian recipes that kind of you don't find on Pinterest, you don't find in a cookbook. And it was a really great little interaction because we got to sit down and make everything from scratch, and then devour our beautiful food that we put together afterwards. We all left feeling like, you know, like professional chefs. We do offer a free urban adventure to all of the agents attending today. We just have to have you guys register agencies to go ahead and get those. And you guys can email me those your information directly, and I can get you registered. So you can try one of these on your travels around the world. And then basically we are doing our best of the best competition. We're right smack dab in the middle of it right now. So it was going from September 1st until November 30th, and it is our biggest incentive. So we have 3 massive trips that we are including flights on, and it is based off of just PAX numbers. So it's our top sellers across the North American region, so US and Canada, and you would win an option to do, our first prize is a 2-week trip to Antarctica with your airfare included. Our second one is a real food journey Japan, airfare included as well. And then our third one is going to be to Peru, including the Inca Trail, also with the airfare included. So I can give you guys a little bit more information on an individual basis, but it is as simple as that. So once you register and I start tracking your sales, the top sellers based on PAX numbers would be in the running for these top 3 trips. And so then that's basically it. So like I mentioned, I am the BDM for the Central USA. My colleague Stephanie, she takes care of the East Coast and the West Coast. And Mark is our senior BDM for the Americas, so for both Canada and the US. If you guys have absolutely any questions, you can feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. But we are more than happy to help with anything. Like I mentioned before, I used to be an agent myself, so I've been asked a lot of out of the ordinary questions from clients. So I'm pretty good at finding a little bit of a unique way to help clients get exactly what they need. So at that, I will turn it back over to Lorene and see if you guys have any questions, because she's got the little question pop-up box on her screen.
That's right. That's right. Well, you did an awesome job. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And it's funny, for those of you who have been at, I think if I remember correctly, Mark was at the Arizona NACTA conference, I believe. Oh, he was one of our presenters when we had our NACTA conference on the big island of Hawaii, because I remember him, he had his tank top on. He was going to go out and hit some waves. Then he came back and he had like real grown-up clothes on. And I'm like, okay. Great guy, and it's wonderful to get to know you also. So thank you for being here. I just want to point out to everybody, if you look at her email address on there, it looks a little bit different than what we are used to seeing. In fact, I even emailed her last night going, oh my goodness gracious, did I have a typo? We're used to having the name at companyname.com, and being some of the fast forward thinking suppliers, it looks like you guys are doing the .travel, which is interesting. I have not seen too much of that lately. So I want everybody to make sure to write down the email correctly. I also put it in a chat box if everybody wants to be able to cut and paste it here to make it easy. Do have a couple of questions for you though. One of the agents, rightfully so, my apologies, I was keeping everybody from hearing me suddenly cough. He asked if there's going to be any price difference between children and adults, kind of overall. Is there going to be the same price per person, or is there a children's rate?
There is a children's rate. It's 10% off of what the adult rate is. And when you go through the itineraries, specifically, this is for specifically the family departures, it will show up right there. So it's something you definitely don't have to memorize. It's all right there online.
Perfect. And, you were mentioning, obviously for being able to track us to see how our sales are going, did you give a website where people should register? I was paying attention, but I don't remember seeing where people need to sign up.
No, I did not. What you can do is actually just email me directly, and I can go ahead and get you registered. I'll just make it even that easier for everybody individually. So if you want to go ahead and register, you can absolutely just shoot me a quick email with your signature block. That'd be perfect. If you are part of a consortium, please include that as well. And that way I'll go ahead and register you and get you an online sign-in. So that way you can book online as well as over the phone, and that way we can track and make sure everything looks perfect with commissions and make sure everybody's emails are up to date and all of that good stuff.
That'll be great. Would you like them also to provide you their office or cell number, their IATA number? I know you said the host name could be Signature, Oasis, Connection, Travel
leaders,
partner, planners. Thank you. Travel Planners International. Great.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah. Honestly, the more information, the better. But at minimum, I would just need the name, the host agency, the name of the agency, obviously, and then address and email address would be the bare minimum.
Also on your website, one of the agents asked for the little short foodie add-ons. I love that. What a genius idea. Well, it lists kind of what areas they will be available. Are they, you know, obviously land, but are they something, will they be in areas where they could attach as a pre and post to a cruise? Would it be FIT? Can you get a little bit more detailed with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do have a pretty comprehensive list where all of our food adventures and a lot of those bite-sized breaks are in the world. So if anybody is looking for that information, I can honestly send you a pretty exhaustive list of them via PDF. So that way you have a good idea. But yeah, we have them pretty much all over the world that are really, really easy to get to places. So you're not in the middle of, let's say you're in Thailand, for example, and you're starting a bigger trip or you're doing something FIT. We're not going to have you in the middle of nowhere. We'll have the bite-sized break in Bangkok. So it's easily accessible and easily added on to, you know, potentially a larger trip, or even the same thing if you're doing a cruise, it'll be in a location that's easy enough to add on.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, honestly, those are the only questions we had right now. You covered everything very well, so it makes total sense to me why people didn't have a ton more questions. Again, what website would people go to? Just also get them started. I know that they're going to be emailing you directly, but do you have a good launch page you would like people just to be able to kind of spy down to what you have to provide for people?
Absolutely. So basically, right now, just to give you guys a heads up, we are in the process of putting together an exhaustive agent website that will encompass all three brands. Just because of the sheer volume of product we have, it is taking a bit longer. It is in the works though. So right now, you can just go to intrepidtravel.com. peregrineadventures.com and geckosadventures.com. And when I send over a little bit more information and a little bit of a blurb as a follow-up for you guys, I'll include all of that information so you don't have to memorize it right now. So it'll be easily clickable, I promise.
That'll be awesome. Thank you. Thank you. For those of us who fall into the older category, I had to laugh when you were saying it because I'm like, watch it.
Something and not have to type it in. That is the best day ever for me.
Well, this has been wonderful, Carolyn. Thank you again, and thank you for Intrepid Travel to be such great suppliers and supporters of NACTA. I look forward to meeting you one day. I'm sure our paths will cross, and I'm really, really happy that we were able to get you in at the very last minute to do coverage because we wanted to have you as one of our webinar suppliers for a long time, and you're perfect for it.
I hope so. It was my pleasure. Again, any questions from anybody, please don't hesitate to reach out. In the meantime, Stephanie is out of town right now, so anybody on the East or the West Coast, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can help you get all signed up in her absence for right now.
All righty. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a safe rest of the week. Again, I will have this webinar up on the YouTube channel shortly. We will send a post email message out to you that has this link. So thank you, everybody. Be safe out there. Thank you again, Carolyn, and be well. Bye-bye, everybody.